Hey class, my name is Adam Shaw, and the book that I chose is Larry Doby, The Struggle of American League's First Black Player by Joseph Thomas Moore. I This book wasn't on the list, and I chose it because one, I love baseball, and two, I think that Larry Doby is an important name that most people haven't heard of. When people think about or hear about black players in baseball and segregation and race, Jackie Robinson is going to be the name that comes up more likely than not. Jackie Robinson was the first black player in Major League Baseball, as number 42 is retired by all of baseball today. And he even has a Jackie Robinson Day where every team, every player wears number 42 for their games that day. Larry Doby did not get that recognition. He was only 11 weeks behind Jackie Robinson in breaking the color barrier. Jackie Robinson became first for the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947, and just 11 weeks later, Larry Doby became a member of the Cleveland Indians, um, which made him the first American League African American player. If you don't know, there's two leagues in Major League Baseball. There's the National League, where Robinson played with the Dodgers, and there's the American League, where the Indians play, and that's where Doby ended up. Um, but that's kind of just why I chose the book. Doby was raised in South Carolina, in the South, in the 30s and 40s, I guess. He was born in 1923 in Camden, South Carolina, which was a southern state, very segregated, very racist. Um, he had to learn that race-ridden southern culture severely restricted his freedom to do many things, travel, talk, even think, really, because African Americans were that disrespected. Um, he found odd jobs. He delivered blocks of ice to white families. He tended to vegetable patches, fed chickens, chopped wood for stove, and he picked cotton for 12 hours a day and earned $1. If that you convert that today, that's about making 12.50 for a 12-hour day, so a little over $1 an hour, which is not going to happen this day and age. But he did that to survive, but ultimately he found that his passion was baseball. He played a little bit in high school, and from there he went and played in the Negro Leagues at 17 years old. Now, if you don't know, back in the 40s, before 1947, black players were not allowed in Major League Baseball, so they had the Negro Leagues where it was all black players, and they traveled by bus, and they dealt with all that segregation. But he did that until he was 19 and got drafted as World War II, and he joined the Navy, and he did that, so he had to kind of put his baseball on hold, and he even had to deal with racism in the Navy, white officers, um, they kind of segregated blacks in one part of the Navy, and whites were allowed to do much, much more. So it was kind of his first taste of the real world, outside of South Carolina, and how relevant racism was even in the United States military. Once his tour was over in 1946, Doby went back and played more Negro leagues, and then 1947 was the big year. Um, Jackie Robinson obviously was first, and then 11 weeks later, Larry Doby became a member of the Cleveland Indians. Seemed like it was an interesting kind of introduction. He had all white teammates, obviously, and he was welcomed by some. Some wouldn't shake his hand, which isn't too hard to believe. Um, but he got boos around different stadiums, and it's stuff that was expected. I think the first wake up call that I found in the book was spring training in 1948, his first full season in Major League Baseball. If you don't know, Major League Baseball has spring training before the season starts, and the Indians were in Tucson, Arizona, and so he got there. He's really excited, and as soon as he got to the hotel, he wasn't allowed to stay there with the rest of his team. The hotel decided that was a bad look to have an African American in their hotel, so while all of his teammates were staying in the hotel and going to baseball and having team meals, Doby had to find his own place to stay, and he ended up finding a black family in Tucson, and he actually lived with them for the couple months of spring training, and that's he was segregated from his team. Um, Other than at the ballpark, he couldn't really be with them, which I can't imagine how hard that would be. But he dealt with it. But it had to be he had to deal with there's an element of fear because there's threats. People didn't want him there. Uh, Racism. It was 1948. It was huge. It was a scary time, and there's loneliness and isolation for him, and not being able to take part because of the color of his skin had to have been very difficult. And this kind of institutionalized segregation was something that awaited Doby everywhere he played around the country, and it was something that he just had to deal with. Um, Back in 1954, I mean, this was something he had to deal with for those, I guess, 6 or 7 years. But in 1954, Supreme Court issued the decision requiring integration of schools. This was a huge achievement for people of color at that time. However, it wasn't really as it seemed. White supremacists were making extra efforts to resist this movement, and with that, segregation when it came to Doby and baseball was more alive than it had ever been. One huge part of the book that I really enjoyed was, I guess it was where it was stated that the two worlds of black players and white players collided, and it was 1956 when Doby was said to write a new chapter in the integration of baseball with his left hook. With that being said, basically what happened was Doby got hit by a pitch by a white pitcher, and he charged him out and punched him in the face. This was huge because it was the first time a Negro player got assertive against a white man and kind of put down his foot and say, "Hey, you can't do that to me just because I'm black." So this act asserted that black players were in fact on the same level playing field as their white counterparts, and they needed to be accepted, and the color of their skin just didn't matter. So that was a huge thing for him. But this was kind of Doby's life. He played baseball. He dealt with racism and segregation. When all was said and done, his career was over in 1960. He played 11 seasons, full seasons, played over 1,500 games, made 6 All-Star teams, went to 2 World Series with the Cleveland Indians. But, baseball for him was not over. He continued in the game. He became not the first. Again, he was second. He was the second black manager. In 1978, he became the manager of the Chicago White Sox, becoming the second manager in Major League Baseball as an African American. In 1998, he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, which is basically the biggest achievement you can get as a baseball player. He was a good ball player. Some people called him great. But he was inducted not because of his ball playing ability, really. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame because of who he was and how he changed the game as a whole. He was basically a pioneer. He was a pioneer for baseball. He was a pioneer for African Americans in this game. And without the things that Doby went through and the things that he had to endure, Major League Baseball wouldn't be what it is today. There's more Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and black players than white players in Major League Baseball. He changed the face of baseball. He helped break the color barrier, and without him doing that, Major League Baseball would not even be close to as the diverse sport that it is today. I think bottom line is I think Larry Doby needs more credit. He died in 2003 on June 18th after a long battle of cancer. But I think he was happy with his life, just judging by what I learned in the book. But I just believe that with the amount of respect and honor that Jackie Robinson's got, Larry Doby shouldn't be that far behind. So that was a book I read. I think it was a great book. And if you like baseball and you're interested in race and segregation, I would pick it up. It is Larry Doby, The Struggle of the American League's First Black Player by Joseph Thomas Moore. Um, Thanks for listening. Alrighty.